Picture this scenario. You walk into a convenience store, pay cash for a prepaid phone and a prepaid SIM card. You activate the phone in a different zip code from where you live, using a name that is not yours, and never log into any personal account on the device. You tell yourself this phone is untraceable, a burner, disposable, anonymous. 2 weeks later, a forensic analyst correlates that phone to your identity with 97% confidence. They never saw you buy it. They never tapped the device. They used only the metadata the phone generated by being used. How this works is not magic. It is pattern analysis, and it has been operational in law enforcement and intelligence contexts for over a decade. The term of art is behavioral biometrics applied to cellular metadata. What it exploits is a truth that most people do not want to think about. You are a creature of habit, and your habits are unique. Let me describe what a cell phone broadcasts, continuously, independent of what apps you have installed or what name you use to activate it. Every phone, while powered on, registers with the nearest cell tower. The registration includes the phone's IMEI, a hardware identifier tied to the physical device, and its EMSI, tied to the SIM card. The cellular network records these registrations with timestamps and tower IDs. Every time you move between tower coverage areas, a handover event is logged. Every call you make or receive, every text you send, every data session you open, generates records in the mobile operator's database. These are called call detail records and, more broadly, signaling data. Even without the content of your communications, the metadata is rich. Now let us construct the pattern of your normal life. You wake up around 7 in the morning. Between 7 and 8:30, your phone registers on the tower covering your apartment building. You commute, which your phone traces as a sequence of tower handovers along a specific route. You arrive at work, where you spend 8 to 9 hours connected to the towers near your office. In the evening, you reverse the route. You stop at a coffee shop on Tuesdays. You visit a gym on Wednesdays. Your weekends show a different pattern. Time spent near a partner's apartment, near a favorite restaurant, at your parents' house twice a month. This is your behavioral fingerprint. It is generated by you, without your conscious participation, and it is as unique as a face. A 2013 study by Yves Alexandre de Montjoie and colleagues at MIT published in the journal Scientific Reports demonstrated that just 4 spatiotemporal points, meaning 4 observations of where a phone was at what time, were enough to uniquely identify 95% of individuals in a dataset of 1.5 million people. 4 points. The title of the paper was Unique in the Crowd. The implication was that anonymized cellular metadata is not actually anonymous because the patterns in your movement are yours alone. Apply this to a burner phone. You buy a new device with cash. You activate it. You start using it. Within days, you have taken it to your apartment, your workplace, your gym, your favorite coffee shop. The new phone is now generating a movement pattern that overlaps with the movement pattern of your real phone. An analyst with access to cellular metadata and the authority to query it can run a correlation. Which 2 IMEs show statistically significant co-location over a given time window? Which phones move together? The burner phone and the real phone appear in the same locations at the same times because they are both in your pocket. They are linked. Your burner is no longer anonymous. It is tied to your real identity through the identity of the phone you did not bother to hide. This is the first and most common failure mode of burner phones, carrying them alongside your normal phone. The solution, leaving your real phone at home, is harder than it sounds because most people do not actually do it consistently. And even if you never bring the real phone, the burner's movement pattern itself becomes a signature you can be identified by if you use the burner often enough for that pattern to emerge. Now layer in the second mechanism. Behavioral analysis of the burner alone. The burner phone, even used carefully, produces records. It connects to towers. It is used at certain times of day, in certain sequences of locations. An analyst with access to a broader dataset can compare the burner's pattern to the movement patterns of known individuals. If your burner phone's usage closely mirrors the schedule and route of a specific person, even without direct co-location, the inference is possible. It is weaker than co-location, but in aggregate, Across many samples, it converges. This is the field of location-based de-anonymization, and it is well established in the academic literature. A 2018 paper from researchers at Carnegie Mellon and elsewhere examined how location traces from mobile phones could be matched against external datasets, such as credit card transactions, social media check-ins, and public records, to identify anonymous subjects. The more data sources an analyst has, the lower the threshold of evidence needed to make a confident match. Third mechanism, communication graph analysis. Who does the burner phone call or text? Even if both parties use burners, the network of contacts produces a graph. If your burner calls your mother, or your partner, or your usual contacts, the set of numbers it connects to is itself a fingerprint. Social graphs are extremely unique. A 2011 study found that 3 to 5 contacts were enough to distinguish most individuals in a network. If your burner's contact list overlaps with the contact list of your real phone, the inference is immediate. Even if it only calls a few numbers that your real identity can be tied to, the connection is made. This is why serious operational security around burner phones emphasizes what is called communication partitioning. A burner is not safe to call people you know. If you use a burner to call your usual contacts, you have linked the burner to them, and through them to you. Fourth mechanism, device fingerprinting beyond IMEI. A phone's radio hardware has subtle manufacturing variations that affect its transmission characteristics. This is called RF fingerprinting. 2 phones with identical software running identical apps will still produce slightly different signals because of small differences in their crystal oscillators, their power amplifiers, and their antennas. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies have access to tools that can identify a specific device by its radio signature, independent of its IMEI or SIM. Changing the SIM does not change the RF signature. Changing the IMEI through firmware modification, which is illegal in many jurisdictions, does not change the underlying hardware. If an agency has previously recorded your burner phone's transmission fingerprint and later encounters it again, the match is definitive. Fifth mechanism, behavioral patterns of the person operating the phone. How you hold the device, how quickly you type, the timing of your key presses, the apps you open, the order in which you open them, the Wi-Fi networks you connect. 2. The Bluetooth devices in your vicinity, the ambient sensor readings from accelerometer and gyroscope. Every one of these is a potential signal. A person's typing rhythm is idiosyncratic enough that researchers have demonstrated identifying individuals with high accuracy from keystroke timing alone. A paper published in 2020 from Ben-Gurion University showed that smartphone sensor data, without any traditional identifier, could identify users with over 90% accuracy after a few days of observation. If an app installed on your burner phone collects any of this data, and the app has any connection to services you use on your real phone, the behavioral signature links the 2 accounts. Even if the accounts are separate, the person operating them is recognizable. Sixth mechanism, the purchase itself. Paying cash at a convenience store seems anonymous. It is not. The store has cameras. The cameras capture your face. If the store cooperates with law enforcement, either voluntarily or under legal compulsion, the footage from the time of purchase can be recovered. Facial recognition, combined with databases of known individuals, can identify you. Your entry to and exit from the store is also captured by street cameras. Your car's license plate may be visible. Your movement to and from the store leaves a trail in the data collected by any phone you carried with you, including the GPS data that Google or Apple has logged about your device over time. The cash transaction is untraceable only in the narrow sense that the dollar bills themselves cannot be followed. Everything around the transaction is traceable. Seventh mechanism, SIM registration and activation records. In many countries, prepaid SIM cards now require identification at the time of purchase or activation. In the European Union, most member states enforce SIM registration laws. Many Asian countries have similar requirements. In the United States, federal regulation does not require SIM registration, but carriers routinely collect identification for fraud prevention, and activation often involves calls to an activation line that records the phone number and other metadata of the activating device. A SIM activated while the burner is connected to a cell tower near your home, even if you bought it in cash, produces a record tying that SIM to your neighborhood. What does all of this mean for the concept of a burner phone? It means that burner phones do not provide anonymity. They provide, at best, separation between identities, and that separation holds only if every point of possible linkage is managed. Managing every point of possible linkage requires a level of discipline that almost no one maintains. The professional operational security that allows a phone to function as a genuine burner involves never activating it near your home or workplace, never carrying it with your real phone, never calling or texting any contact that appears on your real phone, never using it long enough for its own movement pattern to become identifiable, buying it in a jurisdiction where SIM registration is not enforced, paying with untraceable cash obtained through means that are not themselves traceable to you, avoiding any camera coverage during purchase and activation, and using the device only in ways that do not correlate with your real-life patterns. Almost no one does all of this, and if you get any of it wrong, the chain of linkage is re-established. The broader lesson is not that burner phones are useless. It is that the threat model assumed by the word burner, that the phone itself provides anonymity by being unregistered, is outdated by roughly 15 years. The anonymity a burner provides in a world with pervasive metadata collection, behavioral analytics, and device fingerprinting is limited, conditional, and easily broken. Against a low-capability adversary who only has access to the phone's own records, a burner provides meaningful separation. Against an adversary with access to cellular metadata, location data, or any of the major platform datasets, a burner is a weak layer of obfuscation that falls apart under analysis. The takeaway for most people is that if you believe you need a burner phone, your threat model probably exceeds what a prepaid phone from a convenience store can protect against. The gap between what burners are imagined to provide and what they actually provide is wide. Organizations that genuinely require untraceable communication rely on operational procedures far more elaborate than device choice alone. Individuals who buy a prepaid phone and assume they have become anonymous are operating on an outdated mental model of how surveillance infrastructure works. Your patterns betray you. The device is almost incidental. What makes you identifiable is that you go to work at the same place every day, come home to the same address every night, contact the same people, buy coffee at the same shop, and live a life that, seen from the outside, is a signature no one else in the world produces. A phone in your pocket, any phone, is just the instrument that records that signature. Change the instrument and the signature remains. The signature is you.